With all the changes that are going on in the industry, brought about by digitalization and escalated by the pandemic, our next panel will discuss how bankers of tomorrow will differ from bankers of today. On panel will be Mr. Anurag Mathur, Head of Wealth and Personal Banking of HSBC Bank, Mr. Melvin Low, Head of Global Transaction Banking OCBC Bank, and Ms. Fern Lim, Director of SC Ventures, Standard Chartered Bank. The discussion will be moderated by Ms. Lydia Wee, Deputy CEO of the IBF. The audience is encouraged to post any questions you have for the panel in the Q&A box, and we'll answer these live at an appropriate juncture. Over to you, Lydia.
Thank you, Flo. So I hope everyone is doing well and enjoying the session so far. Thank you very much for tuning in, and I'm very, very pleased to have with me Anurag from HSBC, Mel from OCBC, and Fern from Standard Chartered today with me on the panel. Just going to give a few moments for everybody to come online, and then we will start. Okay, so thank you very much today. We have a very diverse panel, and it's deliberate. The intention really is to give different perspectives to a very thought-provoking topic that we have put on today. Really an attempt to compare bankers of the past with bankers of the future. And today we have with us Anurag, Mel, and Fern to give perspectives from the retail bank. And here Anurag represents both the retail and the wealth space. So really hoping to hear his insights on that, as well as the corporate banking space. So Melvin heads up transaction banking at OCBC, and he will be able to give perspectives on that. And Fern has a very unique position. So she's what we call a venture builder. I'll leave her to elaborate a little bit more on what that exactly is. But she clearly sits between the traditional space and what we would call the newer spaces. So whether it's in relation to fintech firms or it's in relation to new areas. So really hoping to hear her perspectives on that as well. I'm going to start with putting the stage or the question to them to give a very short intro of their career journeys. So they are human beings after all. So I've asked them to share a little bit about their career journeys, perhaps maybe an interesting anecdote or story that has made an impact on them so far. So I'm going to start ladies first. So Fern, over to you.
Hi everyone. I can only see Melvin right now, but hi everyone. My name is Fern. Yes, indeed. I currently work for SC Ventures. It's the venture incubation arm of Standard Chartered Bank. So Lydia said it's a very mystical creature that no one really understands. So very happy to share a bit more. So I've currently working for SC Ventures. What I do is is my camera off?
No, it's on.
My camera is on, yeah? Yeah. So I currently lead venture sourcing. So what does that mean, right? So essentially what I do is I study technology trends, I study demographic trends, and together with the team, we actually think about, okay, what new business propositions can we build in our untapped markets, right? So that's the first thing I do. The second thing I do is I also meet a lot of fintechs. I also evaluate a lot of fintechs. So that's a very good way to have a pulse on the ground. They can't see us, can't see me. Can't see me?
Yes.
Let's try. Is this better? Can't see. Is this better?
No, we still can't see you.
Okay, let's try. There. Is this better?
For some reason, we can't see you, Fern.
Oh no. Shall I log out? So you can hear me. You can. Shall I log off and come back in again?
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
sure,
sure.
sure.
Oh, thank you very much. My voice is great enough, but yes, okay, I will try and let you see my face. Okay, let me log off and I'll come back in again.
Okay, but maybe then in the meantime, why don't I pass the time over to Anurag and have you speak first, and then we'll have Fern continue her story when she comes back in.
Hi, Lydia. Thank you. Great to be here. So my name is Anurag Mathur. I'm head of wealth and personal banking at HSBC Singapore. I guess before we dive into the topic, I know, Lydia, you were saying introduce yourself briefly. So maybe just as a bit of background, I've had a non-traditional sort of career and life background, I guess. And we're going to be talking about learning and reinventing yourself. So I'd like to think that I'm living proof that you can do that. You know, I've lived. I was born in India, and then I've lived in Singapore and done most of my education here, and then lived and worked in Australia, and then Hong Kong, and now actually back to Singapore. And from a career perspective, I actually trained as a civil engineer. I started out my career as an engineer, and then worked in management consulting for a while, and have now been in banking for many years. So once again, you know, I think continue to evolve. A little interesting anecdote. I actually when I grew up in Singapore, I used to live in Pasir Panjang. And I feel like I've come full circle because I'm actually sat here in the HSBC offices at Maple Tree, directly overlooking Pasir Panjang, the building where I used to live, actually. So there's a little funny story for you. So that's me.
Very nice. Thank you. So Fern, you're back on. I see your face. So great. Maybe we can have you continue first before Mel comes on to speak.
Oh, now we
Fern,
can't hear you.
Yes.
You're on mute, Fern. There you go.
You know, for someone from fintech, it's very embarrassing. Now you can hear me.
Yes. Very
Okay,
well.
so hi everyone. My name is Fern. I work for SC Ventures, the venture incubation arm of Standard Chartered Bank. Very happy and very privileged, you know, to be here today. So maybe I'll just share a bit more of what I do. Currently, I lead venture sourcing. So what this means is actually I study a lot of technology trends. I study demographic trends, and we actually come together with the team to discuss, you know, how can we build new business propositions in our untapped markets. I also meet a lot of fintechs, and that's a very good way, you know, to actually have a pulse on the ground. What's trending out there, they actually tell you. So that's another good way of staying updated. And the third thing I do is actually I build new business ventures. So when we talk about what does a corporate venture builder mean, right? We build new business models and we spin them out as a separate legal entity of the bank. So last year, what happened was I co-founded a retirement platform together with two of my colleagues. We got it seed funded, and then now it's been passed on to another team. This year, I'm on to another project. I'm building something called a gender lens investing platform. What this means is we are trying to drive diversity in supply chain. Because it turns out that agenda is a big theme that, you know, investors are looking to invest in, but no one can find them, right? So the key here is, can we build a platform here to bring this gender-led companies up so that, you know, we can fund them. So this is just the 3 key points of what I do. A bit of background. Prior to Standard Chartered Bank, I worked in OCBC Bank, and that's where I know Melvin. I was very, very blessed. You know, I was given the opportunity to start the Open Vault at OCBC. So that's the fintech lab of OCBC Bank. You know, we were given a mandate to build something from scratch. So that has been the highlight of my career. Very exciting because essentially you're building a startup in a corporate environment, right? So how do you do that? Plenty of war stories. I'm very happy to share it later. So that's about it, I think.
Thank you, Fern. Now over to you, Mel.
Okay, thanks, Lydia, and hi everybody. I'm Melvin. I run global transaction banking here at OCBC. I can probably say I'm the oldest here on on this panel. I started.
No.
I started. I graduated with a comp science degree. computer science in the 80s. So that kind of dates me. And when I started banking, the internet was not born yet. We didn't have mobile phones. We certainly didn't have Zoom or any of these things that we're using today. So actually, I would say when I started banking, it was really looking at banking from a very traditional and historical lens. But how that has changed tremendously over the almost three decades that I've been in this business. I've worked at Standard Chartered. I've worked at HSBC. I have also worked at Citibank before joining OCBC. And through the years, we've seen how technology has transformed our industry incredibly. I mean, we start with the .com, which went bust, and that was a very sort of exuberant and also then again very sort of realistic and a humbling time. After that came and went in the 2000. We then saw the global financial crisis, and that took a whole Mickey out of the growth in our banking industry and changed it probably what I thought would be forever, and that would be the last time I'll ever see such a change in the industry until 2020, where when we're just on the cusp of driving digital revolution in banking with mobile and platforms. And then we are hit with the COVID crisis. And now we're kind of back to where digitalization will ultimately define the new norm in our industry. I can only say that having been through many of the ups and downs, I probably would be able to share war stories and show war scars of being a banker in this really interesting time. So with that, I'll hand back to Lydia for us to talk about that in the next hour or so.
Thank you. I hope that you are getting a sense of why we have invited these three individuals onto our panel for today's discussion. But really, I mean, taking a step back and looking at the environment, clearly the pandemic has accelerated digital transformation, changed the level playing field, which Mel has already alluded to for businesses across the board. And I think before we go any further, let's just talk about that. What are some of the key changes that the industry has had to contend with? What are some of the things that are fundamentals that, notwithstanding the earthquakes and the tsunamis that we see around us, what are those things that you feel, will remain or have remained? And maybe I'll start this off with Anurag from the retail wealth space, so something clearly very, very tangible to all of us as consumers around the room. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, thanks, Lydia. And I guess you're starting with me because often, I think these changes hit consumers and consumer banking first, right? So look, I think the changes we're seeing, obviously started well before COVID, and some things have changed since. But some of these are really trends that have been in the making for years. So, one big one is technology and disruption, which has, fundamentally changed, certainly banking, but probably every sector. And it starts actually with all of us, right? The consumers, the users. Because what has happened is we've all come to expect that whatever the product or service, like even banking, we expect the user experience of an Apple device. We expect the personalization of a Netflix sort of channel. We expect everything to be just sort of delivered on the spot, like an Amazon service. So that's now the expectation from everything, right? Including banking. So you can call that disruption, but that's fundamentally, well, one, opened the door for new providers like fintechs who've done this better and faster in some specific areas, and have challenged, big banks like us to obviously transform ourselves. But it's also created new opportunities and actually new jobs and roles that we'll talk about. So I think technology and disruption is one key trend, and this is only accelerating. I think the other one is globalization. And I know it sounds a little bit odd that I'm saying this while, no one can travel and whatnot. But, fundamentally, it's changed, who we are, how we live our lives. And I don't think it's really reversible. So whether it's travel, because I think almost everyone in Singapore by definition travels. Education, many of us go overseas for education. Work, many people work overseas in their lifetime or even do business. And half of the SMEs in Singapore, do some form of import or export. So, life, and business is much more global these days. And I think this has, this certainly affected banking, right? And retail banking and wealth management. So people now expect to move money around, instantly. People now expect to be able to invest around the world. And people from around the world expect to invest into Singapore. So obviously this is quite central to who we are, as HSBC, and that's very close to our hearts. But I think it's a broad trend. And I think finally, a little bit, I guess, in the COVID context, obviously it's been a very difficult time for all of us in many ways, even though fortunately, things are certainly, more under control in Singapore than in many other parts of the world. But that said, we've seen rapid digital adoption, even in Singapore during this phase. We see it in the data in terms of usage. We've seen, we've had to evolve our products and our service delivery rapidly. So things that, we've had branch staff, contact center staff working from home. We've had them enabled to deliver solutions remotely through technology like, Live Sign and Zoom. So we've had to rapidly evolve. And of course, our people have had to rapidly evolve. So some of these changes, many of them actually are going to persist. And it just means that it actually helps us to better meet customer expectations in the post-COVID world. So I think these are some of the trends that have certainly been shaping, our sector.
Thanks, Anurag. Maybe just building on that, Mel, what are you seeing in the corporate banking space?
So I mean, I would echo a lot of what Anurag has already said. The COVID has completely impacted the way in which our corporate and businesses clients operate, buy and sell. So if you take a look at how supply chains and value chains have completely been disrupted because of COVID, the inability to not only travel, but also the cross-border trade that has been absolutely impacted by China's shutdown, then followed by one across the world, global supply chains being impacted for our clients. The way our clients also engage with their customers also has been impacted. Clients, you can't close deals, you can't shake hands, so you're on Zoom and you're trying to engage them more digitally. Many of the B2C type businesses had to go online in a very rapid way, right? To set up e-commerce solutions through even WhatsApp or Facebook, etc., just to survive. And even for these clients as they operate, imagine all of us had to work from home, a large percentage. So for these companies and with the banks as well, where we had all our staff or most of our staff at home for a good part of 70, 80 days, this whole way of operating, how do you make sure the technology is there for you to still access your information, for you to be able to do some semblance of work, totally disrupted through the COVID situation. And I guess on the impact from the banks, as what Anurag said, how do we then similarly engage our clients when half the branches are closed? Our clients were rushing to get onto digital, those that haven't gone on. And to be fair, in Singapore, we are very highly digitalized. Our customer base, maybe 80-90% are already on digital, but the remaining 10% had to rush on. And given the situation of the branch limitations of movement and of the branch opening and closing, we had to deal with that in a very different way. How do we interact digitally and get the information we need, the documentation and information we need to get our clients and still work with our clients. And finally, on acquisition, I mean, when we talk about solutioning with our clients, transaction banking solutions, looking at how we help them even just get the whole credit situation to handle the whole credit enablement, right? To help get the government funding to the SMEs and to the businesses, all had to be done via digital channels, and that proved to be extremely challenging for us and our clients as well during this time.
Thank you. So clearly a lot more digital, a lot more transformation, a lot more changes in the way that work is being done. So Fern, over to you now, and we've already got a question in relation to non-traditional players. What are your thoughts? Having worked with, I would say, both sides, do you see essentially an opportunity for a greater acceleration or further evolvement of the business model given the entry of whether it's new players like fintech or even the digital-only bank licenses that are due to be issued later this year?
Yeah, so I think so Anurag and Melvin, they both shared great points, but I think two points that needs to be reinforced is I think we need to acknowledge that banking and technology, they're actually converging already. So what does this mean, right, for us, or for the relevance of us, or for jobs, right? I'll answer the question on digital banks later, but let's focus on what does this mean for jobs, right? So the first case is for bankers. I think you actually now need to go understand how technology can enable us to do business differently. So this could be a case where how do we use technology to build new different business models, correct? But at the same time, as bankers, I think we also should learn or actually understand how can technology help our clients in their transformation journey. So this was definitely echoed by what Melvin said, because some clients, if they're not digital, what do? They actually run back to the bank for help because, oh, I don't know what to do. Can you help me? So I think for bankers, it's actually important to understand, okay, this is where technology is heading. This is how you can actually transform. So that's one. The reverse is also true. So for technologists, for example, who are looking to enter the financial sectors, right? I think it's also important to actually build a strong business acumen. So you're already great in technology, and in the case, some of the attendees have said, "Oh, I'm great at blockchain. How do I use my skills in banking?" And the key here is you are great in blockchain. Now let's use this knowledge and see what kind of new business ideas can we build, what kind of products or services can we build on behalf of the bank, so that we help the bank, we also help the clients. So these are two key things that I think I just would like to point out on. And I'm also thinking maybe let's move towards the entrance of the digital bank. I think we all know MAS is going to announce the winners for the digital bank license, I think at the end of the year. But I was also thinking maybe let's just share real stories, right? So at least for Standard Chartered Bank, we have MOX. So MOX is the digital bank in Hong Kong. And how have jobs changed, or what has changed, right? The first thing is, so MOX, right, is actually a partnership with a telco company and a travel company. So the first thing is, in terms of client acquisition or just distribution channels, that's quite powerful already. And we're also talking about what we get alternative data. So as a proposition, that's quite powerful. But if you think about it, right, we're still building a bank, which means banking as an expertise is still very important. You're actually in charge of people's money, right? It's still very important. Actually, what has changed is how we operate, correct? So there are two things that I also wanted to highlight. Traditionally, I think banking was always about product pushing. When we did like a user research, right, for the retirement platform, one of the clients always say, I don't trust my RMs. They tell me when to buy. They never tell me when to sell. And then we think about it, that in a way is quite true. It was always about product pushing. But things have actually changed, because, for the formation of the digital bank, it's really about customer centricity. You go down, you speak to your clients, and I think the MOX team, they spoke to like 2,000 users. What do you want from the bank? What kind of features do you want? What kind of propositions do you want? And you realize, actually, the next generation, they actually want insights. They want analytics to their spending behavior. Aha, we know that this feature needs to go into the digital bank. And you start to realize that data privacy is actually also very, very important. And it's not just data privacy, right? It's data ethics. How does the bank use their data? This actually matters to our users also. So the onus is on the bank to understand that these features or these propositions matter. We need to incorporate data security, and we also need to think about how to communicate it back to our clients. Because at the end of it, right, banking is just all about trust, and we cannot take this away. Banking is really about trust, you see. So I just, just to summarize, right, two key things: customer centricity and how we operate. It's really all about speed and it's all about technology.
Thank you. I think very, very insightful, which is also a very nice segue because you used the term convergence. So clearly, I think all the individuals around the room are thinking about whether it's in relation to a current job that they currently hold or they are in that may be changing in view of some of the things that you just talked about, or they're looking for opportunities within the sector and trying to assess if or not, there is a fit in terms of their ability as well as aspiration. So maybe just let's drill down a little further and answer or share perspectives about. I mean, having been in the business for that duration of time, how do you see jobs evolving, and how do you think that they will continue to evolve, particularly in relation to both the way we engage customers and what is being required in terms of expectations, as well as customer centricity, and also I suppose given the vast amounts of data we are now being able to aggregate and analyze. So I don't know if somebody wants to go first, otherwise I'm going to shoot an arrow.
I mean, happy to pick up from that, Lydia. Yeah, look, I think definitely the jobs are changing, and I think Fern made a great point. Technology is fundamental, right? And it allows us to understand the customer better. But I think the reassuring thing for everyone on this call is, look, people will always be really, really important in our sector, and simply because as humans, I think we like to engage with other humans. And I think as of now, the machine hasn't learned empathy yet. Maybe that will come one day. so I think the right mix of technology and the human interaction is a winning combination. So I think that's important, the way we see it, in two ways, right? So one is, we want to enable our people to be able to better serve the customer through technology. So what that means is that obviously we've got various tools and platforms that they use. Increasingly, they've got the data and the analytics to support them, whether it's leads in terms of what to talk to the customer about, or access to customer information when they're having an advisory discussion, and dashboards and so on. So that's actually enabling better service from our people. But then obviously we've got the technology for the customer to self-serve better, and I think Fern described that very well, right, through apps and messaging and so on. But I think coming back to Lydia, your point around the skill sets, what do people need to develop? Reflecting on this, as I was pulling together, what are the kinds of trainings that we've curated for our people at HSBC, and what have we leveraged, from the great work that IBF has been doing, and etc. It kind of struck me, there's a 3 Ds here, right? And the 3 Ds are the skill sets that people need to develop. One is around data. So data and analytics is fundamental, simply because as customers are doing much more digitally, that's creating much more data for us to be able to understand them better, right? What are they doing? What kind of needs do they have? And even their preferences on how to be served. So understanding, how data is set up, how it can be analyzed, how it can be used to predict customer behavior is a fundamental skill. And there's training programs that, you as the participants in this session can actually do. And it's a skill that can be learned, right? The second kind of D in that 3 Ds is design, right? So customer-centric design. And what is that? That's basically a systematic approach to look at what are the jobs that a customer needs done, whether it's, I mean, fundamentally the jobs are things they want to do in their lives, right? Because they open an account for a purpose, they take a loan for a purpose, right? They invest money for a purpose. So it's going right back to that, saying what are they trying to do? What is the pain point or the friction in that traditional processor journey? And how can we make that much easier and much more seamless for them, whether it's in a digital way or a human way or a blend of the two? So, reimagining that is basically customer-centric design, right? So I think design is the second D. And the third one, of course, is digital, because, to Fern's point, we now have actually new products and services in banking that are purely digital, that are only delivered digitally, right? So there is that element. But then there's also the delivery of traditional products and services, like loans and savings and so on through digital channels. So the digital is important to create new products and services and to deliver the traditional products and services to the customer. So to me, the 3Ds of kind of data, design, and digital kind of sum up the new skill sets. And there's training around all of these, and some we've curated internally in our HSBC University. And there's a bunch of programs that our people go through around that. And even just here locally, we've had more than 1,000 people adopt these training modules and apply them at their work. And of course, a large number that are also taking advantage of the training the IBF's put together, like the PCP, the professional conversion programs. And I know the speaker previously was talking about mid-career hires. It is absolutely possible to learn these skills and to get into the financial sector. So I'll open it up from there.
Yeah, I'd like to sort of tag on to what Anurag was saying about that in terms of changing jobs for bankers. And in the corporate banking space, one would argue that corporate banking has been the same for quite a long time, and maybe not a lot has changed. Core to corporate banking is lending. Core to corporate banking is a trusted advisory service to large corporates and their or even mid-sized corporates and business owners in terms of how to run their business, how to grow their companies and enter new markets, etc. So when we think about that, we don't think a lot about digital, right? We think a lot about I can really help you run your business, and I can really be that partner that you desire to grow together. But given the current state of affairs, I do feel that this traditional role is going to change, and I think it's going to change a lot faster than we think. First and foremost, I think all the things around, as what Anurag said, data, design, digital, all are applicable in the business world, in the corporate world as well. And as bankers, I kind of see a few things, right, that are kind of converging, or if you say colliding in our space. Technology and banking, right? Are you a tech savvy banker? Or are you a bank savvy technologist? I mean, that's the way I would look at this convergence coming around. I would probably say that as a banker in the corporate space, or even in the commercial space, you have to be very attuned to a digital mindset. You have to understand that the customers that you deal with are digitalizing rapidly and sometimes forcefully or forcibly, and therefore you have to be able to understand what they're going through. So if you don't have a digital mindset, it's kind of difficult, right, to put yourself in their shoes. And then you've got to have a solutioning mindset when you go to them, and it means getting sort of beyond your comfort level of looking at the balance sheet and just understanding their assets and liabilities, but actually getting into the heart of their operational flows and understanding how they collect money from their clients, make payments, manage their cash, go across borders and deal with their counterparties, suppliers and customers etc. Understand their supply chain, understand their value chain, and really get into the heart of their operations in a big way. And for a lot of bankers, this is not a very natural space to be in, right? The best corporate bankers actually do understand that in a deep way. And which is why in my area of transaction banking, the relevance of bringing the technology solutions in the 90s we called it PC banking, in the 2000s we call it internet banking, and then in the 2010s we call it mobile banking, and then now we call it digital platforms, and connectivities with APIs. Same thing, right? Different technology. But how you bring that to the corporates is going to be about how you have the digital mindset, solution their flows, their payments, their collections. And if I may put a commercial plug in that, last year we launched with IBF a transaction banking course to teach bankers in many respects what transaction banking is. How do you do payments, collections with a digital spin, add technology into it, and then create solutions that would help the customer sell and buy digitally and manage their cash using digital tools. And I think that, to me, is something that is going to be very, very relevant for bankers going forward, corporate bankers going forward.
So maybe if I can just chip in, right? So actually what we are talking about is actually the concept of skill stacking. So, so whatever that Melvin shared and Anurag shared, combining a digital mindset and the way we do, actually is a concept of skill stacking, where, if you're a banker, you are great with understanding, the payment flows, and now you just need to build new skills and stack it up, you see. So traditionally in banking, we celebrate specialists. But I think now we need to be open to the concept of beyond becoming a specialist, we should also aim to become like a T-shaped people. So where you have a good understanding of your domain, but you are specialized in one, and subsequently you become a pie-shaped person. Now you are specialist in two areas, but you still have a broad understanding of banking, you see. So I thought maybe I'll just maybe share a quick story on a colleague of mine, where I thought he actually epitomizes, how you actually stay relevant in the space of banking. So I think like for Standard Chartered Bank, recently we actually announced a new venture, which is a banking as a service venture. So it's actually led by my colleague Kelvin. So he spent like 8 years in retail banking in Standard Chartered Bank. So he knows the ins and outs, you see. But he spotted two problems. Number one, he said, look, cost of customer acquisition is very high. The second one, cost of client servicing is also very high, which means that our margins are dropping. How then, do we as a bank defend our space, when the likes of your Google and Facebook start attacking? And it's coming, right? So just yesterday, I think Facebook announced Facebook financials. They've got Facebook Pay, Google has Google Pay. The tech players are coming. So the question is, how, do we help the bank stay relevant? And what Kelvin did was he launched a banking as a service venture. What this means is he will have, he actually has strategic partners with your e-commerce players. So you think along the lines of your Lazadas and your Shopees. They have the front-end platform, they have the customers, and for us, we are just the pipes. If your client needs a bank loan, sure, we'll give it to you. You don't have a credit risk score, never mind, we'll tap on alternative data and we'll build new credit risk engine. How has Kelvin's job evolved, right? So that was the topic. How has Kelvin's job evolved? Traditionally a retail banker, but now he actually understands how do we build new tech stacks? How do we build new credit risk engines? How do we even strike partnership deals with the e-commerce players, for example? So it summarizes, how do we stay relevant? It's really about skill stacking. And with this venture that he has brought up, he now has he's well conversant in many areas, and this to me is really just an example of how we should start to shift our mindset and stay relevant in the space.
Thank you. And actually, on that specific point, we actually have a question. And at this point, I also want to invite our attendees. If you have questions for our panelists, do feel free to post them in the Q&A chat. We'll try to pick up as many as we can. So specific to competition fund, and this is really a question across, I think, our panelists. The question is, are we moving fast enough? As traditional players, clearly with legacy systems and legacy people, as well as legacy mindsets and skills. Do you see us moving at a comparable pace, whether it's in relation to keeping up with competition or staying ahead? And then the second is, I think across, all the skill sets that you listed, clearly it's a case of, we would like to be able to do all those things and have all those skills that you have mentioned. But what are some of the challenges, that you have seen, at least given, the positions that you have within your organizations, when it comes to bringing, your people to the spaces where we think we want them to be? So maybe we can start first with Anurag. I think Melvin has, he's back. So Anurag, do you want to start first?
Yeah, so thanks, Lydia. So I guess 2 points there. Are we moving fast enough, right? And how do we help people learn and transform? So we absolutely need to move faster. And obviously technology and new players are moving rapidly. But I think what gives me hope is that actually, certainly for a global bank like us, whatever it is, we've already done it somewhere globally, and we learn from that. So we look across not just Singapore, but what others have done, and obviously we learn from the industry. So absolutely, even internally, we continue to work in different ways and much more in cross-functional agile teams to increase the pace. But I think what we, and Fern said this earlier, right? Trust is fundamental. There was an interesting, I think, comments there on the chat around, is trust still necessary in the world of blockchain? I think arguably it is, because whenever there's a party or an entity you're dealing with, fundamentally it's only as good as the values and the behavior of that organization and the people that run it, right? So I think trust is still fundamentally important. And I think as much as large institutions have to do a lot more to transform, on the positive side, those customer relationships and trust built up, over time, particularly around, managing wealth, I think is absolutely key. And I think customers do want, their banks to deliver new services in new ways to them, knowing that they do trust them. I think the other thing, my perspective certainly is that if you're a fintech doing one product or one service with a very simple app, it's, you can build a really good experience. But the moment you start layering on the products and services and then trying to go horizontal and vertical, well, guess what? You're introducing complexity in the experience and in the tech architecture. And guess what? Soon you start to have the challenges of a big bank, right? So and then in terms of customer behavior, again, people are different. So how many apps do I want to have on my phone to do, my broking, my savings, my borrowing, my card, my loan, my mortgage, my da 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 da, right? So, I think there's many things at play here, and there's a happy medium. And I think the banks learn from the fintechs, and the fintechs want to work with the banks. I think on the point of, how do we transform, I guess, as people and as people looking to get into the sector. It's been said earlier today, learning is fundamental. It does start with, I think, the desire. We've got to keep learning, otherwise we become irrelevant, right? And I think that is fundamental. And the same applies to me. So about 2 years back, maybe 3 years back now, I took part in a digital leaders program that HSBC runs. And as part of that, it was a 3-day program where I was exposed to what are the new technologies, right? Like blockchain, etc. What is the platform business? And we had tech entrepreneurs come in and talk to us. How do we apply this in our business? How do we organize ourselves differently to work agile? What is customer-centric design? So all of these things, I've had to learn, and the team has had to learn, and it can be learned, right? So that's the good news. But I think the most important thing is just to have the courage to take the first step and to ask for help from the organization or from your peers and support group or friends. If you want help.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree what Anurag is saying about a learning culture. I think, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, I think the jobs are going to change quite materially because of what we're going through, and even faster because of what we are going through immediately. But just a note on trust versus technology. I mean, when I take a look at my workforce and the team that I run here, I've got a wide range. I've got very young people who have just come into the industry. They are very tech savvy. They are very comfortable with technology, and they embrace the new digital norms very readily. Yeah. I've also got the other end of the spectrum. I've got older employees who are still learning and trying to keep up with the changing world around them. But the differentiating factor on both, right? Because the younger guys don't know much about banking, and the older ones don't know much about technology, is really the differentiating factor is the learning culture, right? And the learning culture will help to distinguish those that can move very quickly through and be able to embrace the changes better, right? And not only that, be more to add more value to the customer. A note on trust. Trust is built, right? It is never. You can't buy it. You can't. You can't just have it overnight. You can't inherit it per se, right? You have, when you're sitting in front of a client, especially a corporate client or a business owner, your ability to engage and provide the kind of advisory, whether be it digital or not, right? Just basically to help him, that is really part of that trust factor and that credibility that you build over time, right? And so sometimes with those who are the younger ones who are coming into the industry, I do say, look, spend the time, talk to the clients, right, and understand, right, how they work in order for you to add more value to them, and learn, and learn from the older your older colleagues who have been there and done certain things, and at the same time teach, right, and have the older ones learn from the younger ones how to embrace that technology and bring them into the current world and help them to keep up. And I think that is where I think when I look at the team complement, it is not just about bringing one type of person or another type, right? But really having that diverse mixture to be able to have that cross learning and the cross fertilization of knowledge, and ultimately, if you're willing to learn, whether you know anything about banking or you don't know anything about banking, it's that learning propensity that we are looking for. Transaction banking for me is actually a very interesting field because I've hired all kinds of people from all kinds of nationalities. I've hired zoologists, psychologists, not just accountants and engineers and comp science and etc. Very unusual people from all walks of life. And I mean, I see a question here by Max on astronauts. Not yet, but I would hire an astronaut any time of the day because they will have a perspective of the world that none of us would have, right? I mean, literally. But that's my point. I think it's about whether you have that learning propensity, whether you are willing to understand and see, right, what's going around you and be able to assimilate that information into something that you can value add to your clients. That ultimately has not changed, I don't think, for the longest time, but we've kind of a bit forgotten about it in the for a while. So now we're kind of relearning how to learn, I would say.
Yeah, so it's also maybe just to jump in. So Capital One, the bank, they did actually employ a NASA scientist actually. So it's true. It is true. It's true. So there are examples where Capital One, they were very proud. Oh, this guy from
We've got
NASA, right? So correct. And I think what Melvin is trying to say, it's really cross-pollination of ideas because again, right, if industries are converging, you can actually apply expertise across different industries, right? I also wanted to say that, sometimes I guess for us, the great thing is everything is a Google away, which also means that if indeed, we have that desire to learn, just Google and you will be able to do your research, just on your phone, right? So maybe just bringing this back to fintech. 5 years ago, it was all about chatbots, it was all about blockchains. But now, what's trending? DeFi. What does DeFi mean, right? Oh, it's actually a $4 billion industry, trustless, permissionless. So I was smiling because we were just talking about trust earlier, and now there's this DeFi movement where it runs on Ethereum, right? Where people can build apps, build contracts, you can give loans to strangers. So I'll just share very candidly. I had a friend, he wired $250,000 worth of crypto to a lady called Molly Winterfell. Stranger, pseudonym, definitely no such person, no KYC, but but it is trustless, right? So you wire money over, and he says, "Oh, this lady has promised me 4 times returns." It's great when you get your money back, but you think about it, what if you don't get your money back? So if you think about it, banking, it goes back to banking is all about trust. Sure, there's a pocket or segment of people who are very willing to put their money in a trustless system, but for the large majority, I think banking is here to stay. At least for us bankers, the least we can do is keep abreast of the financial technologies, of the changes out there. At least for me, if we refer back to DeFi, sounds a bit dodgy, sounds a bit fraudulent, but I thought minimally the governance colleagues, my risk colleagues, compliance colleagues, you actually should be, you actually should understand what this movement is all about, and at least have a view, because someone's going to ask the bankers, oh, what is this about? What are your thoughts? So for us, it's really about learning and just Google. I think fundamentally, reach out to trusted people or just Google. I think you can get a lot of information right now.
So thank you, everyone. We've run slightly over time, and I do know we are holding you back from your lunch, even though virtually, I suppose some of us would already have started, but clearly not my panelists. So if I need to round up that session, give us your final thoughts. If there's a few things that you want to leave with the audience, I was going to say one, but I think it's going to be quite hard to just have one thing to leave with our audience today. What is it that I think practically as individuals we can do, whether it's in relation to new skills, particularly in the technology space, or it's in relation to even books. I mean, okay, Fern talked about Google, so I guess that's her best friend. What is it that you would leave? If there's just one or two things that you would want to leave off with our participants today.
Okay, maybe should I kick off? So just look, parting thoughts. I just want to share a couple of quotes actually from two of my colleagues who've been on this journey. Just to give you some real life examples, right? So the following quote is from a lady called Revati, who is a team head in our contact center at HSBC. So she's been on that journey of transforming her skills, and she's done a course on heart of service design. And she told me that it's not just what I've learned, but I've also transferred what I've learned to my team members, right? So that I can guide and coach them. So I think that's really important. She's also said that PCP or the reskilling does not end. I continue to upskill myself. And I recently attended an EQ course on emotional quotient, and it has further enhanced my role. So I think she's embodied that spirit of always learning. And I'll just give you one more quick example of a couple of colleagues, Cheryl and Jim, who joined us actually on as part of the Attach and Train program that the IBF had set up. And they were mid-career, and they came in to learn data and analytics on the job with the experts in our team. And so, they've said that throughout the journey, help and support is always available. So we're not struggling alone. We have friends and colleagues. When we feel overwhelmed, we have approachable mentors and supervisors. So again, real life examples of how you can reskill, and we all need to continue to. So I think my parting advice just is, be positive and invest in yourself, because an investment in yourself, will always pay back in the longer term.
Thank you, Anurag.
Yeah, and I would say too, I think Anurag is really spot on this. I think that at the end of the day, staying positive and keeping an open mind on what you can do, not only what you are doing, but what you could possibly do in the future is very, very important. I mean, it ties closely to the learning culture that I mentioned earlier. I think one of the challenges that I've been seeing some of the comments as we're talking as well is how would you even start that, right? And how would you get in? I can only say that the industry is changing, and the skill sets that are needed are going to be very different from what they were in maybe even just 10 years ago. You need to keep current. You need to talk to many people who are in the industry and get to know people and understand where they are heading and what they are looking for in as they morph their teams and transform their business, their companies. I think that's something that you need to do. The networking doesn't stop. The training, the learning doesn't stop. I think those are the things that would help you to position yourself best. At the end of the day, for all of us, it's about how much value we can add, right? Be it to an organization, to the clients, to colleagues, etc. So the more value you can add, the higher chance you will have to be employable, right? I mean, because the future is so morphing so quickly. I mean, it is not something that you could, that is beyond the reach. I mean, it's as long as you're prepared to keep that open mind, learn the ropes, right, and really roll up the sleeves and do something right about it. I think that is critical. That is absolutely critical.
Thank you, Mel. Fern, we started with you and we're
Okay,
going to end
so
with
maybe
you.
just parting. So kind of you. So anyway, I just wanted to say, I think there's always opportunity in crisis. If you look back, right, 2008 global financial crisis, that gave birth to the fintechs, and now these guys are unicorns. The company is valued in billions, and these are like 20-something-year-olds, and I think and there it is, right, because with every crisis there are downsides, but there are also upsides. So I think don't lose hope. There's always someone out there who has taken opportunity of a crisis and they spun it around. And I always tell the fintechs that we meet, one day when you become a unicorn, please don't forget us. And that makes them smile because that gives them that glimmer of hope. And I think for us, it's always very important to stay positive. It's going to be okay. Yeah, I just want to say thank you very much. It's been a great time today. Really enjoyed myself actually. Apologies for all the technology hiccups. Very embarrassing.
Okay, there's always room for improvement, so we'll bring you back next time. So thank you very much, Anurag, Mel, Fern. And to our attendees, I just want to encourage you to log on for afternoon sessions. So one key thing I think, beyond all the words of wisdom, that our panelists have shared, it's really around talking to people and trying to understand what's happening. And there's going to be a fantastic opportunity this afternoon as well as tomorrow through the day. So whether it's in relation to speaking to employers or hearing from some of our hiring managers to get a bit more insight into the roles and how these are evolving, as well as what firms, banks or insurers are looking out for. And also in relation to skills itself, I think there have been some questions around what skills should I be looking to acquire. So there will be a showcase in the afternoon. So thank you very much for staying on with us. Flo, back to you.